Taoistmagic Talk Show brought to you by Taoist Master จี师傅 and 天日 Dragon Taoism ผู้亮天尊 Hi everyone, welcome back to the show. This is your จี师傅 right here. And today is another exciting topic. So I got some inspiration from TikToks because people were asking things, and I witnessed how people are confused about the religion Taoism. So I'm using this episode to talk about what is Taoism in terms of its history. Okay, so in the history book, right, it doesn't tell you everything. So don't look into the history book because the history book, China, the history of China is a mess. Well, not to say the history in the Western culture is not a mess, right? There are always times when history were like made up, rewritten, edited, right? So you never know the actual truth of what actually happened. In China, you see, there are many different dynasties that happen throughout times. And if one new ruler takes over and is not from the same family of the previous one, well, what do when they become a king or the empire? They will want to change the history. They will want to write something to bash the previous one and to make themselves look better. So that's what happened all the time. And you see, in China, most of the people, like the average people, are actually farmers and they are powerless. There was a guy on TikTok, and he's a Chinese guy, and he does a lot of nice research, like really in-depth research about China and the life of China before. So he was talking about like how most people are like, and he said, well, you see, most of the people, like average people, lifespan is about like 35 years old and they die. And so, yeah, why are people like married so early and like giving birth to children so early, like at the age of 14 or even 16? Why so early? It's because you don't have time, right? At the age of 16, that's like half of your life is gone already. And what else can you do if you don't like make babies right now, right? So most people are farmers and they have you got a piece of land and you need to take care of that and farm, right? The government or the kingdom, they're going to send people over and take stuff from you to tax. And it depends if there's like corruption or not, which most of the time there are corruptions. So you are going to give a lot to the rulers and you're going to keep very little. And sometimes, like, okay, let's say your daughter, your son, they grow up and they're going to get married. Well, that whole year of income might be gone just for the marriage. So it's pretty suffering in China back then if you're like a farmer. And you know what? They wake up like before the sunrise. So it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, something like that. They have to get ready, go out, and then work in the farm, in the field until like it's 7 or 8 when the sun goes down, and they can go back home and finally there goes home. And how much do they eat? Well, they have to cut down on the food because food is precious, so they only eat like 1 or 2 meals a day, and 3 meals a day is like luxury. There's no one eat that much, so they eat so little. And salt is very, very expensive, so they cannot afford a lot of salt in their cooking, right? So most people in China, they don't have enough salt to replenish the stuff that they have output throughout the day. It's like, right now you have water, mineral water, with electrolyte and all that to like replenish you after you have done sport. So you feel better, right? But back then, no, they don't have that. So it's very, very hard. And, facing the hot sun all day and then like working with the stuff, like your skin gets rough, your body worns out. And hey, you know what? That's life in China. Why do you think people will have that luxury time, to actually do other things? They don't. So they are kept like that for a reason. You kept the people like a machine, right? Like China is like that. They keep the lower class in like they're like doing labor work. They are like machines. They produce things, and well, what do you get returned? You can stay alive, right? Oh, what happened if you don't like do that? Well, the corrupted ones can come over and say, "Hey, we need people in the army," and grab you away, and you're like doing slavery job, right? So you will not survive 1 or 2 year in the army, and they don't care about that because you die, they grab another one, right? So yeah, life is tough. So that's how life in China was. Okay, now you understand the Chinese, right? The Chinese people. Then think about it. History. Who have time to write? Most of them don't even know words. Okay, most of like I'm talking about majority of the Chinese people back then, they are farmers, right? They don't have education. All they know is farming, so they don't know words. Whatever the king say, we believe. We have to believe because in the law, there is like this number one rule and say you cannot offend the king, you cannot offend the emperor, right? The ruler on top. If you offend, you're gonna get your head chopped off, and not only that, there's like 9 generations being killed. So it's you as one generation, and then 4 generations down, 4 generations up. So it's like your mother, grandmother, and grandmother, great grandmother, right? Like basically everyone who is alive and with you are killed. You can be like totally eliminated from this world like that, and no one wants that treatment. So everyone will just, obey, and they're like slave. You just obey and follow whatever the king say. It's fine. Don't like do things that are not useful for your life. If you have time, you should farm. Okay, so that's how it is. China's history is mostly like a game of politics, right? So people, the rich class, the royal family, they are the one who writes. So what they want the people to believe is what gets released to, the books and all that. And hey, come on, you think about it right now, right? Like the China right now, it's about the same thing. They have like super heavy censorship. They have like no freedom on the internet. It's like you want to go on Google and YouTube. No, we don't let you see that. Those American stuff, you're not gonna see it. We're gonna let you see what we have inside our own country only. Oh yeah, and back then you don't have VPN, right? So yeah, well, back in the old days, people are farmers, right? So they farm, but nowadays there's like less farmers. But what's the new form of farmer? Factory worker, right? You get into a factory, and then your job is like the whole day sit there and then plugging in screws or putting on a phone screen. Like the whole day you become like a robot, and robots are brainless, right? Do you know how warehouse works in China? Go do some research. I have seen it, like it's on video, right? So in the morning, everyone like line up, and basically what they do is no different from a prison. So they line up and look at the wall, and on the wall there are like a few boards with like rules, right? A set of rules, and they have to chant it like it's a religion. They have to chant it. Everyone chants together loudly, read it once, okay? And then everyone done, okay, now greet and then go to work, and they line up and go to work. And then it's like, wow, that's how you start a day, right? Like prison. And then you got to have that memorized. Eventually, if you don't remember, you're like punished. You get punished, you get hit, and you get to like okay, now we're going to lock you here, and you're going to memorize it because you don't know the rule. It's very scary, and people break down from that. Like you have to see it. It's on YouTube. There's like many university students who end up working in the factories, and they break down. It's like so stressful because it's like a prison, right? But think about it. Back in the old days, the Chinese people don't even have cell phone. They don't have access to any technology, so they don't really break down because there's like no option. There's no comparison. Right now, you know that like, oh, there's like other countries, there are other styles of life. Like you know there are other things, so you can compare, right? Then you break down. Back then, it's like, no, that's how life is. You get used to it. It's like you're a chicken inside a cage. Your whole life is inside the cage. Like that's your normal, right? You get used to it. You get numb by it. There's no comparison. So that's how you are. And you see, China is like that today. It's no different from before. So Taoism in China today is pretty much like they regulate it to make it like, okay, if the government do not accept or acknowledge your existence, right, whatever sect your Taoism is not Taoism, because we don't register you into our system and you're not licensed. Okay, but you know what? The actual Taoism back then in the old days, okay, it's not like that. Back in the old days, Taoism is like a category. It's more like, you can say, Chinese religion. Okay, so that's like that. Okay, so there are many villages in China, right? Every province, every village, they might have their own belief. For example, this village believe in like a goddess story about this goddess is like this, and they have a story about it. So the whole village believes it for many generations, and they have their own practice. Now, in another village, they believe this general, and they were like, okay, we're gonna worship this general. Everyone have problem, go to the general and ask for help. That's basically how it is, and then they just believe, because you know what, there's like no other options, right? So you don't compare. That's like what we do, that's what your mother do, that's what your grandmother do, so you do it as well, and then you teach your son about it. Okay, so religion in China is like that, and it's very alike with other cultures, okay? But the point is, religion in China, like Chinese religion, is pretty much like all falls into the same category as Taoism. And what is the property of Taoism is that they all believe in a Tao, in a greater power that can help them in life and give them guidance or help them make decision in life, right? So what is that power? Well, there are two types. One is that someone in the village will have a connection with some higher beings, which they say is their god. Okay, so yeah, it could be anything. Okay, but it's like in the West, you have like shamans, and they are like mediums. They can communicate with spirits, and then people believe them, right? Same deal with the Chinese. So they have this type, right? And then they will believe in some sort of god, and they have built like temples and things like that, and people go and worship. So that's like one form. Another form of higher power is a grouped, publicly grouped pool of energies. Like they built a profile. For example, let's say they worship General Kwan, okay, or some guy that is like famous in history. So they built a statue, right? And then they worship it. And then they say, okay, this is what we believe. And anyone like, on the days when you don't need help, you come and worship and do offerings and give food and whatever, right? Worship. And then when you need help, you come and you ask for help, right? And then you ask for help and you get something from the temple to carry with you. And there goes the blessings and the help. Okay, so you see, how does this work? Well, everyone worshiping this statue is like actually investing into the account. They're investing their heart energy, which is through using the faith power, like the belief power. It's like a kind of mental or spiritual power that we all have. You believe in something and you keep believing it blindly, your heart is going into it. Does it work? Yes, it works. And it actually how all the other religions work in this world as well. Like you believe in something, it doesn't matter if it's real or not, and then you go there and do the ritual, and over time the belief power becomes a form of energy grouped together, and you, other people, all group their energy together, right? So you're like all investing into the same bank account. When you need help, you go back there and take from the bank account. So simple, right? So that's basically what the structure or the concept of Taoism is like. And hey, how do the farmers have this idea? Like, where did they get this idea from? I mean, like, they are farming, they don't have money. How can they afford to build a statue, right? You know what? It's the ruler above that builds this temple. It's always those rulers or the rich people that want to control this group of people, and then they build a temple for them. So it's like, okay, this village is flooding. Okay, now there's like this ruler above the emperor gives an order and say, okay, we're going to build this god there to protect the village. So they use the money to build a temple and tell everyone to go worship. And then as they worship, right, the emperor above sent their people to fix the flooding, and they say, okay, we are doing our job as human, and then the gods are also helping behind so that we can actually do the job better. Okay, so the job can be successful. And then everyone go through the ritual, right? If they have like successfully repaired the problem and fixed the problem, then everyone's like, oh, we thank the king above, the emperor above, and the gods above, right? And then eventually that becomes something that everyone believes in. So when you guys have like small problem, don't bother the king. Go ask the god for help, right? If you have small problem, when there's like bigger problem, you need the king, then you call the king, right? So that's how the king actually like take care of the people. They give them like a peace of mind by building a temple. And like these, there are like other people copying the same kind of structure, but without the king building the temple, they have like a in-house temple with a smaller statue and maybe a story of their own version of a god that maybe they came up with, or maybe they have a connection with a real higher being, something like that, right? All that stuff falls into the same category, and that is they all believe that there's something higher than them, something more powerful above, and they combine their effort to worship and invest into that, and then when they need help, they go and get help. Now, that's what Taoism is, right? That is like the real Taoism, which I can say is like Chinese religion. It all falls into that thing, that kind of concept. Well, does it like apply to other cultures and, you know, other tribes out there? Yes, it does. You know, like you look at the African tribes or whatever, you know, natives, they all have similar things. So to me, like personally, Taoism doesn't mean anything much. It's like all the religions out there are kind of like Taoism as well. So, yeah, it's really hard to say like they are not, because they all fall into the same category. But the thing is, if you relate to like China Taoism, as in like the government regulated ones today, well, then that's another thing. Okay, that's not Taoism. That's like China Taoism Association. That's a government association. It's like they regulated it. So if you're not inside their system, you're not counted as Taoism. But in reality, that's not how it works. Like back then, it was not how it works. Today, it's not how it works too. But is it a good thing to have Taoism regulated? I think I need to talk about it in the next video. I mean, the next podcast, because today my timer is up. So we'll see you in the next episode. And if you have ideas or questions, feel free to leave in the comment section below, or pay attention to my TikToks, and you can like have faster interaction with me on TikToks. And usually I grab ideas from the TikTok response and then come back here, and then I will do a longer version of the answer. So thanks for listening and watching. We'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.